All right, it is time for SIP episode 115. And tonight we discuss one of the wine industry's most favorite activities, the vertical tasting. How to do it, what type of stemware, what type of food. All of it is uncovered this evening with Jeff Loomis of Loomis Estate Vineyards, the only 100% Rhone varietal producer in all of Napa Valley. This is a ton of fun. Sit back, relax. Welcome to SIP episode 115. I want to get started right off the bat. My name is Martin Cody, co-founder of Cellar Angels, an online curator specializing exclusively in the best undiscovered gems coming out of Napa and Sonoma right now. Taste the thrill. It is going to be a rocking evening this evening. Many of you are actually drinking the two wines that we have this evening. And it is something that we highly encourage to order a sip kit. So now Cellar Angels is an online direct-to-consumer wine company. We only specialize in direct-to-consumer. We have no bricks and mortar. And the way you get this sip kit, and quite a few other wines, mind you, is to go to the Cellar Angels website. You hit shop, you go to wine, click on that, and the first item you see up for grabs in 2.63 seconds, a little slow this evening, is the sip kit. So now this sip kit has the next 5 wines available for the next 4 sip events. And again, it looks like there's 2 more coming up next week for our final, or 2 weeks from now, tonight, our final event of the year. Purchase this, it gets delivered to your home. You sit back, you relax, you get to be entertained by the talent that we have every single week from both a winemaking standpoint or vintner, but also get to learn a little bit from an educational topic. And tonight's educational topic is vertical tasting, how to host, how to assess. But there's a couple things you need to know. There are some wines on the website right now that are in precious short supply, and I would encourage you to act fast. The crux, we've got those boys coming up in, I think, January, February. But the Ketchum, I believe Alley Ketchum only has 8 more bottles of this. The Achenti thereafter cab, there's 4. Some of you were actually on the Achenti shoot. This is a killer Cabernet. Loomis, Jeff, I don't know why, there's still some Syrah left, and it's the 19 Fire. Are you kidding me? That's not good. So these are in precious supply. The Loomis has 8 bottles left. So that is where you go to the Cellar Angels website to grab that. You want to get some educational stuff, you hit the blog. And the blog is going to have everything you need to know about Merlot, top 6 wine myths debunked. A lot of things are getting populated in the blog, and we're going to talk about more of that coming up. But I did want to let you know about this Monday's pop quiz. So, high alcohol content in wine is perceived as. The answer was spicy and burning. That's what high alcohol in wine is. The correct answer is from Brent H. again. I am telling you, the man is on fire. I think he's got 7 of the last 10 weeks. Correct. Doug R. Doug R. was second. He is not present tonight. The Sipster that you guys all are, Doug sent us an email ahead of time that said he would be unfortunately unable to attend this evening. He's having dinner in New Orleans, but he can go, as all of you can if you were missing it, to the YouTube site, the Cellar Angels YouTube channel, and actually download that link for this coming video. It will be posted on Monday, and he can fly home and watch it on the plane and learn everything possible there. So that's the quiz. Now I want to actually launch something that we haven't done before in quite some time, because tonight's guest is very, very special. And it is a little bit of an introduction with some news. And I will share that screen right now. Yes, you will absolutely get points. So where did that go? Love when this happens. Oh, why is that doing? Okay, so you can see it on the side panel? No, I can't. No, you can't. For those of you that are new, who and what is Cellar Angels and what is a Sipster? Jeff, you may not even know this, but the community has actually nicknamed themselves the Sipsters. They are exceptional supporters and wine ambassadors, and they are eudaimonic in nature. And eudaimonia is a Greek origin term. EU, meaning good, daimon equals souls. They are good souls. These are kind people. They pursue excellence. They want to develop additional wine skills or insight. And tonight is a perfect opportunity for that because they're going to learn all about hosting a vertical tasting. They express and aspire to be the best versions of the greatest wine drinkers there is, pursue and hone their hobbies, passions, interested in doing what they believe in, and they are world changers. And speaking of world changers, I want to let everybody know that this company does not exist without that young lady. So happy birthday to Ivy. Woo! She will not be on camera right now because she's hiding and does not like cameras, but you can see I am lucky to be working with two amazing women. But this is Ivy's birthday weekend, so we're going to wish her happy birthday later on. A little bit more about these sipsters, Jeff. Heroes, we call them. And I've said this before, but not hero in the Marvel comic strip type of sense, but the Greek origin, the Epictetus, the Socrates, the Marcus Aurelius time frame. Stoicism. These guys are protectors and defenders with the strength of two, and they protect and defend the small limited production winery because this is what it's all about. This is the fabric of the wine industry, and it doesn't happen without consumers like the sipsters, and we're growing this audience, and so we grow them because of access to people like you. Now, wine heroes, it works. They are this class of people. Let's talk about some news and some things that are coming in 2023. For about the last 45 days or so, the marketing group has been putting together some things that we've been trying to launch throughout the year. One of them is the Cellar Angels Heroes. We just talked about heroes. The other one is the Cellar Angels Health episodes. So as you know, we did a recent episode on resveratrol, and we had a very, very knowledgeable physician assistant to a neurosurgeon. And Jeff, you would have loved this episode because the neurosurgeon that he worked for 35 years, he invented the concussion protocol for all of the professional sports. And he's, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers guy. He's WWE, been around a long time. But we're thinking about doing Cellar Angels Heroes, Cellar Angels Health. And the marketing team said, you know, that spells caca, which would be a great calling sign for wine lovers in large public places. So I would like everyone to try it right now. Cup your left hand over your mouth. Caw-caw. It's the call of the wine wild. I can tell you in doing this, do not do it and face the congregation in church after getting communion. I thought there would be a lot more wine lovers in church. There were not. And I hesitate. I thought it would be okay to do it at the front of the security line at a TSA. Also a bad idea, but a lot of people with some shiny stars came out to say hello to me on their chest. It was very fascinating. Now, in the news this week, Winc files Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I don't know if you know who Winc is, but they're an online wine club that went public in 2021, had a valuation of $112 million, raised $22 million, and now has a valuation of $3 million. So that's not good from a valuation standpoint. What's that? Oh, hang on, Mission Control is talking to me. IRS raids Southern Glazers. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The largest distributor in the country got raided right in Jeff's back town, San Francisco. And they were talking about perhaps they believe that IRS raided them and TTB unfair trade practices. Oh, like maybe having legislators read speeches on the congressional floor that you write for them? Yeah, that could be part of the problem. Delaware may soon get DTC. How about that? Delaware's changing laws so that you can finally order wine direct from wineries like Jeff. And last but not least, sports fans, Iran and the United States are playing in the World Cup. From what I hear, it's a win or go home game. So that will be a nail biter. And I'm looking for, really? How did it end up? Okay. Apparently that game happened on Tuesday and we won. So that is news to me. I'd like the staff to get a little bit sharper on some of the breaking announcements. And I don't know if you saw this on Tuesday, Giving Tuesday, Forbes did an article on wine companies that give back. And it was written by the author that we had on 2 weeks ago, Kathy Hoyhe, and she happens to talk about a bunch of great companies here, but she also mentioned Cellar Angels. Not only hear about us giving back, but also the article she profiled in 2015 when we were featured for the first time in Forbes. Not a bad week. So let's get to tonight's featured guest. Tonight's guest is so special. Pop-up dinners happen around the country when he's not even in the country, and they honor him with his wines. James Beard award-winning chefs will put food together with his wines. He is an avid sailor, having won the America's Cup 4 times without having stepped foot on a boat. He often will sit at the port of San Francisco and actually do impromptu stand-up routines while the main talent like Fallon and those folks have to take a rain check. He is fond of bubbles, and when he is in the room, bubbles will be close at hand. His favorite mantra, no Krug, no party, is near and dear to all of our hearts and what mere mortals aspire to be. Sometimes he actually is bicontinental, where he can host and be at home hosting dinners and going against the greatest wines in the world. His heart is most still when he's in the vineyard. And when he's in the vineyard at dawn, pre-harvest, above the clouds on a very, very special property, when things are going to get happening after a year of growing, he is the most interesting vintner on tonight's program. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome back to SIP our friend, our fellow compatriot, and someone that we look forward to seeing and talking to each year, Jeff Loomis.
Hi, gang. Wow, quite the intro. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are very welcome. I first want to toast you. Jeff is coming to us from Mexico right now, where, as we found out during prep on Wednesday, he's not running from the law. It's just a little siesta. Outstanding.
Absolutely. Beautiful down here.
Where are you again in Mexico?
In Punta Mita, just north, about 40 minutes north of Puerto Vallarta.
He is the most interesting vintner in the world, in my opinion. If you watch his Instagram feed, you will pull a hamstring trying to keep up. It's unbelievable. It just is amazing to me.
I do like concerts.
You do like, I'm a big fan of music. So that's another thing we have in common.
Absolutely.
Now, I want you to kind of refresh the new folks about your story, because the property behind me, not many people have ever been to or will ever get to. We hope we can change that. Little picnic table set up above the clouds, so to speak, for a little lunch. But you weren't always into wine. You have an incredibly successful ad agency in the San Francisco Bay Area that has also been multiple continents over the years. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Jeff and his agency stepped in 6 or so years ago when Cellar Angels and our technology and our agencies were in a world of hurt and took everything from offshore and put it back on shore and stood us up and made everything right. So we will forever be indebted for that graciousness. But tell folks a little bit about your wine story. How did it begin? And where did it begin?
Sure. It began at the Harvard of the West Coast, University of Oregon, and where I was gracing glasses with Blue Nun and Matus and Mad Dog 2020, and the usual fine wines that one drinks in college too. I then ended up doing a study abroad in Avignon in the south of France, heart of Rhone, and did something that I rarely do. I skipped school, actually, maybe the other way around. I decided to go on a bike trip. And I basically rode towards Avignon and took a left and ended up in this little village called Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
And what year in college was this?
That was my junior year.
Junior year. Okay. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and I sampled the local wares from jugs for a few francs, and it was an epiphany. It was pretty obvious to me this was what real wine was. It didn't have the sugary aftertaste nor the hangover that is often accompanied by Libre Franche, Blue Nun, and a few others too. Asti Spumani was big back in the day too. That was for fancy nights.
That was for fancy nights.
Yeah, and I ended up part of the program was a wine tasting class where they sat you in a laboratory and they had sinks in front of you for spitting, which most of us did not know enough to do, and really know some of the wines there and how beautiful they are and how beautiful they work with food and the history of it. And, and it really kind of settled in the back of my mind Flash forward 20 years later, I found some property on the east side of Atlas Peak and decided if I'm going to do it, nothing wrong with Cabernet, but there are 1,000 amazing wineries that do that in Napa Valley. I'm going to try to grow our own varietals. And that's what I did.
Nice. And we'll orient a little bit later on Google Earth, but Atlas Peak is kind of the first large range going up Soda Canyon Road, coming out on Silverado Trail, if you will. There's
exactly
one of our favorite little sandwich shops is right there.
You got it. Yep. You know
love
it.
that place.
Yep.
And it's way up there, folks. We're going to see this in a little bit. How did you find the property?
You know, a friend told me about it. They were trying to make a luxury home development out of it and hadn't been successful in doing that. And at the time, my wife wanted to look in Tahoe, and I didn't want to bear that kind of traffic. And it's a country feel, and it was an hour drive. So I think it was pulling me. I really wanted to have kind of the ranch lifestyle.
Awesome. It was an hour drive from the top of that mountain to San Francisco.
It's an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
With no traffic, of course.
Yeah. At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. So you wanted to do Rhone varietals, and I'm a big fan of the pilgrimage that you had in Chateauneuf. How many times have you been back?
Oh, many, dozens.
That's awesome.
I love that now. Now I've kind of, moved on from France, having explored that so much. And now I'm kind of, the new educational venture is in Italy, and with an amazing Italian girlfriend and amazing Italian friends who are all involved with wines. It's really been an amazing journey and experience these last 5-6 years for sure.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into a little bit about that because you've had quite the journey, especially with fires and all sorts of other stuff. I have a lot of stuff I want to get to, but tonight's topic is vertical tastings. And it's funny, when Jeff and I were prepping and going over the topic earlier this week, without prompting, both of us said unequivocally, it's the funnest thing to do in wine.
Totally. Absolutely. It's so fun.
And you can do it. I mean, tonight we're only doing it with 2 bottles. You can do it with 10 vintages, or 2 vintages rather. Yep. And I'll give you an example of that. Jeff and Jane, who are on this evening, they sent us a picture of a vertical tasting that they did. And now this is no rookie move here, kids. They actually print stuff out. They've got 7 vintages here, it looks like. They've got tasting notes. They've got water. Not unusual. There is no dump bucket or spit bucket. So this isn't their first rodeo, but that's a great way to do a vertical tasting with, a nice intimate group of 6 or so people. So is there a formula that you've seen work, consistently over time, 3 vintages, 5 vintages, or what are your thoughts?
I think the more the merrier, but it really depends on the group size too. And I think 6 to 8 people is a nice size, and equally 6 to 8 vintages. So I think it's a vintage per person is kind of the rule of thumb that I like to do. You have enough to taste where you're not just getting a drop or 2 in the glass. I love them blind too. Cover up the bottles, mix them up a little bit. You can do that too, which is awfully fun. And here's the news flash. None of us are very good at guessing. You have to be a master sommelier to really guess the year. Don't beat yourself up about it. I remember being at a bistro in Paris called Bistro de Sommelier, which was owned by a sommelier. And one of my favorite wines in the world was in the blind tasting. And I'm like, I know this wine. I have no idea what it is though. And it was the year, it's everything I loved. It was a 1998 Chateau d'Ampuis. And I remember it so well, and I could not identify even my favorite wine. That said, I've had some lucky memories too, with an 86 Batard once that a friend opened at his wine bistro again in Paris and tried to fool us all. And I came pretty close, but yeah.
It is I would say it's a skill that requires practice. And, a bunch, Mission Control and I and Ivy know a bunch of educators, know a bunch of master somms. At one time, I think Chicago had more master somms in the US in the city than any other city in the United States. So And when you start talking to these people and you interact with them and you learn with them, all they're doing is practicing and all they're doing is tasting. And they love blind tasting. It's nonstop.
Tasting. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so it's really enjoyable. And so the big thing is don't beat yourself up if you don't get them right. You know, that's the thing. It's all about fun. I did a tasting once of 15 different vintages for a pretty good group of Pichon Lalonde Comtesse. And there was one guy who got all 15 right. And you know what the story is with him? He cheated.
Oh,
exactly. Nobody gets a 53 Pichon. Okay. Nobody's going to say, oh, that's obviously 53 when there's a 55 next to it. So,
yeah. And especially since the 52 was so stellar.
Exactly.
So now you produce Rhones, exclusively Rhones. And what is case production?
We're back up to about 700-800 cases a year now. We'll get up to about 1,000 max.
And now, last time, by the way, everyone, start drinking the 19. I'm sorry. Uncle Marty was rude. I'm drinking. Last time we checked in, Rudy Z. Can I say Rudy's last name? He's a winemaker. Rudy Zedema.
And yep.
Magical winemaker, was consulting with you, and now who still doing it with that contingency
with that group with Francisco Vega now as the prime lead on that too, and a few unnamed sources who are offering some non official monetary related
no official compensation.
There's no names, no official huge names.
Yeah.
So, and there are recommendations. Yeah, we're not going to say anything, but yeah, it's really pretty special in the wine world when some of the greatest people really help smaller wineries like us and give us some advice on just a few things to do, and they give tips. Part of what I love about Cisco is that his father's been in the vineyards for 50 years. So having that kind of resource to come out, work with my vineyard manager and my team, look at the way things are done, because it's an endless journey to get to where we want to go. You're constantly evolving, trying new things.
I think you just mentioned two things that I want to just touch upon real quickly. Sure. One is that mentorship specifically in the wine industry, which is so incredible to witness, and to witness just from an observational standpoint. Like I see it from a third party standpoint, but to experience it from a winemaking standpoint, and to have someone like Francisco's father, who's been in the vineyards for 40, 50 years, to just share and impart that wisdom is incredible. And that's what makes this so special. Such a great industry. The second point I forgot. That'll come back to me. So let's talk about the subject matter. We started getting in on the vertical tasting. Why would someone want to host a vertical tasting?
I think you're trying to identify wines that you love, right? And the definition of a great wine is a wine that you love. So each year you can have different attributes about wines, and it's an educational process, but it's also, selfishly something about this is the particular year of a wine that I really like. I really see where they're trying to go with this too. So it's not only an educational journey, but it's something that's like, I want to buy a case of that wine because I love that wine. I want to share it with people.
Exactly.
So it's a good way to do it because every year is different. Every vintage is different. We can go through the 100 different variables, the climate, the weather, the growing season, the quantity, the alcohol percentage, all these things are different. And we're always trying to do different things. So for example, with the 2022 vintage of Snow that we're drinking too, we're trying stainless for the first time. And
let's break these two wines down.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, why the name Snow? Because I know you don't get a lot of it out there.
Yeah, I all the wines are named for elements that kind of remind me of each one. It's air, snow, smoke, ember, fire. Snow, I think this wine is incredibly crisp. And Grenache Blanc as a grape is not seen a lot in California. Southern California, Los Olivos region, they have a few, Tablas Creek, because their own Beaucastel has some. But I like the acidity of it. And if you wait, Grenache Blanc is a little tricky because you have to pick it within a 48-hour period really to optimize the acidity. You're tasting, go. And, I think I've mentioned before, we have 4 different harvests for 700-800 cases, which is insane. We don't pick all the grapes at the same time. So, but if you go too long in the growing season with Grenache Blanc, you end up with a honey and a syrupy kind of taste, which isn't, to me, pleasant. All these wines, we try to make them as low alcohol as we can. That's another thing that people should know. It is to make a good wine with high alcohol. It is very difficult to make a good wine with low alcohol. Mm-hmm. So I think the 19 is 14.6, which is nice, and I think 2020 we got down to 14.3. So wow. Yeah, and that's a tribute to the process and the care and the handling we do in the winemaking.
And it's interesting, Charisse, you are reading my notes because there's a question that is, what is the difference between a vertical tasting and a horizontal tasting?
Oh, sure.
If you do the vertical tasting correct, you will be horizontal.
That's right. Horizontal tasting is the same varietal from the same year from different producers. So you pick a 2019 Grenache Blanc and you have 5 or 6 different producers of the same year. So that's really the only difference. The vertical tasting, obviously different years of the same wine.
Same producer. And I think each are fun. I just have always gravitated towards the vertical tasting. And by the way, you're not going to do this with Kendall Jackson. Sorry, legal. You just can't do it with mass production. You can't do it with wines that are formulaically made. You can't do it with wines that do not have really any influence from Mother Nature. And that's the beauty of the limited production small producer, because Mother Nature is the wild card every single year.
Right.
And you'll see this as we look at the 19 right now. I can already see, there's color differences between the 19 and 20 right off the bat. So sure. There is a way to assess wine formally and foundationally and from, a matriculation through a wine tasting program. But a good way to do it, Jeff, is the 6, sometimes 7 S's.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to walk you through those right now. First, you want to grab your glass of 19. Let's start with that too. And you're going to look at it. You're going to look at the different colors. You're going to kind of hold it up against a white background if you can too. And so you can examine the clarities, you get a white piece of paper and you hold it up against that too. And you can see a lot. With red wines, you can actually see the browning around the edge, which tells you that it has some age on it too. Whites, it's a little bit more difficult, obviously, as well too. And then what you want to do, the second S, is swirl it around, because you're trying to inject some oxygen in there so it can, open up a little bit too. And then obviously the third one would be put your nose in it and really smell it. Just inhale. And again, there's no wrong answers. They're all personal answers to what you smell and what you think. There are a lot of very fancy wine terms, but let's take the snobbery out of it. What do you smell? If you smell peppermint, that's fine. I smell a little apple. And, the next thing would be to sip it. So you take a sip in your mouth and just kind of swirl it around. And you hit all those 10,000 taste buds, and it takes you go through the process too. And then you want to swallow it. You could spit it, but we prefer savoring. So savor the wine, drink a little bit at a time. The other thing I'd ask you guys to do tonight too is leave the bottle open and drink it over an hour or two. Let it even warm up a little bit too, because the florals in the bouquet get more, open up quite a bit and become more intense as the wine warms up. When you chill wines too much, we call it wedding wine. If you're ever at a wedding and you want to have a glass of wine, but it's awful stuff, throw some ice cubes in it. It'll kill everything. It'll be palatable, but quality small producer wines, you really want to let them open up a bit. These don't need to be too cold. You can go all the way down to room temperature with these things, but a slight chill on these wines is great. And open them up over, 30 minutes or an hour too. I find that my wines, my whites, actually age really well. And we just did an Italian dinner you mentioned too with the 2020. And I was just so happy to drink it over about a 4-hour period and see the changes that occurred with it too. And for me, it just became more delicious, but I'm a little biased.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past. I love that you mentioned, don't be afraid or ashamed or embarrassed to put ice cubes in it. Oftentimes restaurants will grab a bottle of white wine sitting on the back bar that is, 80 degrees in the sun. And it's like, are you kidding me? I then throw some ice in it. It's not that bad. And then, Dahlia, I totally agree with you as well. I mean, most of the wine fridges and cellar temps are at 55 degrees, but if you pull that out and let that warm up to room temp over the course of 45 minutes to an hour, the aromatics of a small production wine will change, and oftentimes change dramatically. And that's where the second glass is completely different than the first. Ton of fun.
Right. And that's the beauty of verticals, because you're doing that with maybe 4, 5, 6 different wines too. So you can really, whenever I'm tasting wines, I love to keep a bit in each glass for an hour or two. Not just take, whatever portion is allotted for the tasting too, but just sip it a little bit, smell it a little bit, take your time working through it. See if you can find those nuances too, because sometimes you just find magic.
And on this one specifically for me in the 19, you're right. It has a full mouth feel, but there's definitely acid there. And I love that balance of acidity. I'm surprised it's as high in alcohol as it is, because it's extremely well balanced.
Yeah, thanks. Well, 19 was a little different too. It was there were bigger berries and we had more juice yielded from it. It was a bigger yield in general too. A lot of rain through heavy winter, and it leads to kind of heavier crops.
Mission Control is going to throw on some cameras if you want to be visible and you're Zoom appropriate. Feel free. Is there a stemware, or everyone's got their own favorite stems, but I'm wondering if you have a decent stem, and there's a bunch out there, they'll all work.
Right.
Why don't we talk about what wouldn't work? What's bad?
Thick glass. Thick glass. It just delivers the wine onto your palate in a completely different way. It's almost like it bypasses it. So what you really want is that thinness in it too. And I know Martin and Denise have the Bottega di Vinos, which are fantastic because they bridge that gap between museum piece and usable wine glass. So they're a high quality glass, they're thin, they deliver the wine properly, but you can also stick them in the dishwasher. Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah. Red Solo cups for vertical tastings.
There you go.
They're good.
Oh, the best. No, I would not do that. But any kind of glassware will work, But the idea is, if you've got something kind of thin on the edge, that's really what the difference is. It delivers the wine perfectly to your palate.
Perfect. And yeah, most of us, if you've ever stayed at a hotel, all of us, and sometimes the wine glasses that they have there, they look like juice glasses, but they're super thick. That would be bad.
Those aren't great. Yeah.
And food, you're not talking about a dinner here, in my opinion. I think you're talking about some things to nosh on while you're sipping wine. Do you have any go-to items or things to avoid and stay away from?
Candy bars probably wouldn't be great, but
no.
I like the cheese and crackers is kind of the classic too, and I think that's good. You have a cracker between each one. You're looking for pairings. Sometimes you want a little sweetness, a little quince paste too, maybe with some charcuterie. I love these are all food. I make food wines. That's one thing we need to talk about. They're great. I think they're delicious to drink on their own, but paired with foods. I love this with seafood. I love it with Thai food. None of the wine pairings are really done with Thai food. There's a lot of beautiful stuff, and actually some Mexican cuisine too. But seafood in general really works well. Scallops, that sort of thing.
I can definitely see
scallops, right? Scallops, some seared scallops in this wine. Look out.
And I definitely, from a food pairing standpoint with this wine, if I was just going to have the wine and food, scallops would be killer. Yeah. I generally, when we do vertical tastings, I try to stay in the middle of the foods and the cheeses with nothing, super pungent, like a Roquefort or anything like that on one end, or on the charcuterie. I'm not going to kill you with spicy hot salami or anything like that.
No habaneros, serranos, because they'll just kill your palate. Yeah.
Yes. And I think Hans confirmed mint M&Ms that he had earlier today, not pairing well this evening.
No M&Ms, no M&Ms.
No. So that's the 19. You said it was a different year than 20. Bigger berries, larger yield. I'm going to move on to the 20. All in
Sure.
favor, say caw.
Caw.
I like, see, it's, I'm telling you, you're going to do this at the airport and there's going to be wine lovers nearby that will greet you back.
Yeah,
All right. So let's
yeah.
talk about the 2020.
More a normal rain year too. And, but yet the most unique year, at least for us and most of, Napa Valley too, but it stayed cold until late March, which was great. The vines had a lot of time to rest, which is always kind of an important thing to do. These vines kind of hibernate too. But then
what do you mean by rest?
They're going through the winter and they kind of hibernate like bears. You don't really need to do too much to them too. They don't need water, obviously, because they're usually getting rained on, but they're not producing fruit. They're not trying to bud. They're not creating anything. They're pretty much barren, until spring. So it really, it's nice to give them a break, right? And that's kind of the normal cycle too. So post-harvest, usually hit them with some water too, to kind of make them feel good after they've, been working all year to grow this amazing fruit. And then they get to rest over the winter.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, and it just could be the light, this has got a much fuller golden straw yellow hue to it than the 19 did. The 2020 looks deeper in color. Yes. I like the other way. Mission Control disagrees with me. So that means she's correct.
Yes, correct.
So tell me a little bit about the 2020. Oh, it was an interesting year because of the fires.
Yes. So we lost a bunch of the harvest. So there's smaller production in general for snow. And what's interesting about the 2020 is one of the components. So both of these wines are Grenache Viognier. We add Viognier for a little bouquet, a little floral, that sort of thing too. What's different about the 2020 is we have some 19 added as a component. So we did that because of the fires, because of the low yield too. But that juice, we tried something because we were experimenting and we had a few barrels. We actually used it as a component. So you have some 19 juice that has actually been in barrel for 12 months between vintages. So
interesting.
It's again, we're always experimenting, trying new things. We're not getting too crazy, but we like to be adventurous, let's say.
Well, it's interesting that you do that, because that reminded me of the second point I was going to say earlier, is that we have an instant gratification world,
right?
With so much stimulus from alerts, from phones going off, with media and wine, especially viticulture, it forces you to slow down.
Yes.
And you are on Mother Nature's time, and you can't speed her up. You can try to rig the system or game it, but you'll pay dearly for it. And I'm curious, you have to have nerves of steel to want to continue to experiment. And it sounds like insanity.
It is. You and I have had this long, about a decade long discussion with insanity. You have to be insane to be in this business, first of all. And you've got to be insane to really kind of let things happen. Right. I mean, I think we all know, or at least we all should know, that 95%, maybe more, of a great wine is done in the vineyard. It's all about great fruit. And a winemaker's, role is just don't screw it up. Just don't mess it up. Bring it home, get everything out of it you can, but don't mess up the great fruit. Great fruit makes great wines. And so I think it's boring not to try new things. The big difference too about my wines and a lot of other smaller producers is we don't have to subscribe to a release strategy for marketing purposes for companies like Southern, we'll say, where you have to deliver your wine by a certain time, even if it's not ready. And I won't do that. So to give you an idea, we'll do wines in neutral French oak for 6 to 8 months. Then we'll leave them in the bottle for 6 months before we release them. Now that is very atypical. Even our rosé, we're always late on release for our rosé. It's like the perfect summer wine that's released in the fall because it's not, because it's not ready, right? I don't want to release.
There's nothing wrong with, I mean, you're in the ad agency. You're creating a new marketing niche, the fall rosé.
I am. Thanksgiving rosé, right? Exactly.
Hey, that works.
It's the perfect wine for sitting by the pool and enjoying the beautiful summer days. That's released in fall. But you know, and so for example, my rosé has more age on it than most. So but I think that adds to the depth of it all too. So being able to decide when you bottle, how long you're going to keep wines in bottle before you release. So, you know, I've got some 21s that not doing it, you know. I'm going to wait till it's ready. And a lot of those I haven't tasted for a couple of months because I want to give them at least 6 months from bottling. We're just about there right now. So I'm going to start tasting them and we'll probably release them in the early spring.
So when you are doing the vertical tasting and Jeff and family and Jane and family, I'll be curious when you were taking notes with the Crux boys, do you have the group? I mean, would you print out the 6 S's and give them some guidance? Because probably not a lot of people, you know, have done vertical tasting. So you have to give them a little bit of a roadmap. Do you go around the table and say, okay, what is everyone getting on this? Because I think there might be some cognitive bias there. If someone says, I'm getting apricot, fig, a hint of acid, and I think it had a touch of oak. The next person's like, I have no freaking idea what I'm saying after that. You know, so how do you prevent that from happening? I'm sorry. I'm talking to Jeff Loomis.
Oh, you're talking to me.
Yeah, it's different, Jeff.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm assuming you're going to do this with your friends, and you're going to tell your friends from the offshoot. Do not worry about being wrong. There are no wrong answers. This is a yes session. Tell us what you taste. Tell us what you think. You know, if you think it tastes like mahogany, say it tastes like mahogany. If you think it tastes like, if you've got some oak, God forbid, no oak, then say that. So I think you need to kind of emphasize that this is an exercise for enjoyment. This is not a test. You're not doing an SAT, right? And take a lot of the snobbery and that sort of thing out of it. You know, everybody can use different adjectives to describe the wines that they're tasting. And the best one is, I love it. That's usually kind of trumps everything else.
Yeah, it's a good phrase. And I do like that phrase that you're not wrong with whatever you taste. And yeah. We used to encourage people when we owned the wine shop, taste a lot. I mean, it was why we had bottles open every single day at the shop, because you need to start developing that Rolodex of olfactory and taste sensation so that you can start having that recall to go, oh, hang on a second. I know this flavor. What is that from? That's a marker from Merlot. This is South America, you know, and you start going down this ability to identify things, but it's only going to come through muscle memory and repetition.
I'll tell you a short story, and I mentioned it a little earlier too. A master somm owns a small little bistro, very small little bistro, wine bistro in Paris. He was again blind tasting us on some stuffs too, and everybody, I mean, some really experienced somms, winery owners, and everything got it completely wrong, and I kept going back to something. And just by a fluke, I ended up being the closest to what it was. I missed it by a year, and I missed it by one winery over in Burgundy. But again, I was like, how does that happen? He goes, because I remembered an 86 Petard I had in Paris 25 years before. He goes, those memories stick with you, and you may not remember it, you know, to pull it out like that. But when you taste a wine, there's something that connects, and that memory comes back and actually helps you identify a wine. It's a remarkable thing, but I learned a lot that night, and about kind of subconscious memory of wines. And it makes, if you're a sommelier, 10,000 more, right? Your
olfactory trigger experiences are like light years more pleasurable than mine. We had the exterminator at the house the other day. I'm like, oh, I remember this from the truck that used to spray the neighborhood for mosquitoes. Remember those trucks that used to drive through the neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Anybody have those as a kid? Where I'm sure that was safe. No helmets on big wheels, just people spraying the neighborhood for mosquitoes. That was all fine.
Right.
Nothing could go wrong there.
Right.
So those are my olfactory experiences. But it's amazing how you're right, how a single aroma can trigger something from 20 years ago. It does. It
made an impression, and it's still in there somewhere. Sometimes it comes out. It's remarkable.
I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I'm thinking paella with this, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You didn't mention that.
Yep. Love it.
It just hit me.
Paella with cauliflower rice, which makes it gluten-free. I've done that one many times.
Mission control. Bingo. All right, let me see how smart the people are. We're going to do some poll questions. Sipsters, number 2 pencils at the ready. All right. There are actually 13 primary grapes allowed by the AOC laws in the Rhone, and Grenache Blanc is allowed to be blended with all of them. True or false? You know what? Why is no one voting?
Something happened.
Can you fix it? Who else is having more fun than me when the polls don't work? Thank you, Jane. Okay, so Mission Control is going to look at the polls because I'm not seeing any voting on this end. So let me see if I end the poll, if the votes show up. Yeah, nope. Julie, we got it all right. Everyone got 100. Class dismissed. I like it. I like it. Okay, Mission Control, you get to work on the polls while I show people where Jeff is located. I hope. I had to restart the computer earlier. Give me un momento. That's in honor of you, Jeff. That's the extent of my Spanish.
Perfecto. I've been speaking.
Perfecto.
I'm learning Italian. I speak French, and I have a little bit of Spanish, and I tend to blend them all together.
It's all good. We all do. I like that language. Spangler French.
I keep answering, how are you, in Spanish with molto bene.
All right. For those of you, and many of you have been to Napa and Sonoma, why don't I start with this first? Because before I show this majestic property that is literally behind me where you can sit at this table, Jeff, Loomis, how do people actually get in touch and taste with you?
So right now,
you're not open to the public. You don't advertise.
No, just email me, jeff@loomiswine.com. And for Cellar Angels, folks, we can set up something for sure. Right now, we're rebuilding from the fire. We lost pretty much all the structures and that sort of thing too. But the vines are back and producing, and nothing wrong with fire 2020. At least it wasn't during a pandemic. Oh wait, it was, but that is long ago in our rearview mirror.
Karen, you are a glutton for punishment. That is brutal. All right, so wine region for the newcomers. This is, I said at the onset, where Cellar Angels focuses. It is only within this region of Napa and Sonoma. These are where we think the most special wines in the world come from. Jeff and I can debate that because now he's an Italian savant. But I can tell you they have a couple things in common. Whether you are in Tuscany, whether you're in Piedmonte, whether you are down in southern Italy, it doesn't matter. There will be a maritime influence. There will be water nearby. And these two areas are so blessed with tremendous exposure to moisture, both from the clouds, but also from the Pacific, from San Pablo Bay, from the rivers. It really is amazing. The other thing that they share with Italian wines is they have a Mediterranean climate. Mm-hmm. So Italy is on the Mediterranean. Sonoma is on the Mediterranean climate. It's amazing that only 3% of the globe share that climate, and Napa and Sonoma are part of the 3%. Don't ask me why. I mean, it's insane. We talked about the mountain that Jeff is on is right here, I believe, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's about right. Right where the hand is. Mhm.
So you've got to drive outside of downtown Napa. How far is it from the Soda Canyon store? to-
5 6 miles, 5 6 miles. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
5 6 miles from downtown Napa. So Napa is really divided up amongst three main drags, right? Highway 29, which is where a lot of wineries are, Silverado Trail, and 121. So
So this is, I thought I
very
spun this the wrong
dry,
way.
very dry.
Very dry. So here is the road. This road leads to Napa.
Yes, right
Goes
over
around the
over the ridge is Napa.
And this is the gate that goes into this road.
Right.
And let me see. Oh, that's nice that they cleared all the cattle off the road this time for the picture.
Right. Yeah, these are new photos.
For golfers, you have been on wider cart paths. It is horrifying to drive up this road. And I'm not kidding you, the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times I've been there, you're waiting for the cows to get off the road.
Yes.
And they're much larger than the cars usually, or the
They
rental
don't-
cars.
They don't like to move.
And I want to show you the steepness of this. Whoa.
Oop. Yeah.
So
there you go.
this is the gate. This goes up to the property. You can see the vineyards up here. Where did it go? Hang on, wrong one. This one,
2 miles.
properties. Altitude. Why is this not working? Freaking Google. Oh, hang on. I went past it. Show elevation. There it is. Doo-doo. So down at the bottom, your elevation is 913 feet. It goes up pretty quick.
Very quick.
And up near Jeff's house, it's right about 1,800 feet.
Mhm.
So from a Napa perspective, that's up there, and that's up there fast. Which the switchbacks, the brethren from Colorado would laugh when I call these switchbacks. They're pretty severe, but it is pretty intense going through here. And if I could move this out of the way, do this from the gate, moved it right into the way. From the vineyard property, 1.42 miles, crow flies.
As a crow flies, it's 2 miles on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going up just about 900 to 1,000 feet in 1.5 miles. So that gives you an idea of the insanity, whoopsie, of this road through here and these little switchbacks all the way on up to Jeff's place. And I don't envy ever having to reach oncoming traffic. What's the rule? Someone who has to back up?
Uphill has the right of way.
Unwritten rule or pretty much respected?
There's a sign posted, but fortunately there's not too much traffic.
So now this is Jeff's estate. And I think, is that picnic table behind me right here?
It's just to the left. There's a promontory behind the solar array there.
Oh, okay. And the white rock.
So
Or
that's
ash.
actually lime that was amended into the soil there because I'm growing truffles.
Because orchids are out of season?
Yeah, so I partner with American Truffle Company, and it's a long story. We've had 2 or 3 starts in trying to do this. There's a couple places in Napa Valley and Sonoma that are trying it too. And the science is there. So you can see actually some of the fire damage there. Wow, this is
Oh yeah. I can see just about all the fire damage.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time drinking in the house that used to be
Right.
here.
That used to be there. Yeah, that's gone. There's the pool. The pool's still there, which is nice. And
Mhm.
so what you see, I'll tell you what saved us. I'm a bit of a fanatic about keeping the cover crop manicured. And I have sheep, donkeys, all rescue animals that are in there in the off season. And because the ground cover was so low, the fire smoldered through the vineyards and didn't burn the vines. So we lost very few vines. So the fire went through pretty quickly. But wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
See it. You can see it though. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Neighbors
And-
thought I had a cocaine factory going or something when they looked at that hillside. They're like, what is that? I'm making Coca-Cola. Leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. You have a mushroom factory instead.
Exactly.
It is an impressive property. What I love is the creative agricultural manner of slope measurement on how you were able to grandfather these vineyards in. Hans, the only engineer that I know of on the broadcast this evening, will appreciate this story.
So I believe changes have been made, but at the time so first of all, I walked the property. I bought it in 2000. I walked the property for a year plus and consulted a lot of people who told me I was crazy to try and grow grapes there and that sort of thing, which made me even want to grow grapes there more. I found the different parcels that I thought made sense. I found my Petit Hermitage where there's a rock cap, and that's where I planted Syrah. Syrah is a very vigorous vine. It needs to be planted in bad soil or on top of a rock so that you really stress the vines. Anyway, I also cleared the areas and let them winter naturally instead of gassing the soil. Oak root fungus kills vines. Now, I'm in the middle of an oak forest, so that is a challenge as well. But I let them weather, because if you gas the soil, you kill all the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. So it was worth taking a couple of years to do it right. So as Martin mentioned, these are on some pretty significant slopes. And what we're able to do at the time is take 3 points and average them. So the maximum is 15% slope. Otherwise you go into a CEQA study and do some pretty crazy stuff. And that usually doesn't end up well. So most of my vineyards are 14.9. 9. So you find one spot that is zero.
Yep.
Which is at the top of one. You find another spot that, is probably more accurate to what the slope is. Let's go 30. And then you find a 14.999 spot and you draw tangents. And that's how you end up with an average slope of 14.999.
Yeah, these are some interesting slopes. I encourage sipsters, especially sipsters, when you get out to Napa, contact Jeff in advance and honestly spend a few hours. This isn't a quick tasting. You're going to a house and it's going to take you
soon. There'll be a house. Yeah.
Soon. Yeah, it's almost done, right?
Yeah. The 1940 air float trailer is ready to taste it.
In a typical construction project, Jeff told me it's been 6 weeks to completion for a year. I love it.
Right. That's exactly right.
All right. So what's the future hold for you? 700-800 cases, or are you going to expand?
We're going to get up to about 1,000. I think the vines are able to do that. They're maturing, and I'm loving the direction they're going. And it's really it's pretty exciting. It's like a project that, and it's just about its 20th year. You're seeing some real changes. Vines need some time to mature. The whole reason we make a rosé is because the fruit was too young to make a red. And
right.
I started this thing. I was going to make one great Rhone red. That was it. One wine, field blend, collar good, 6 clones of Syrah, 3 clones of Grenache Noir, Vedra, and Counois, and planted some Grenache Blanc to kind of maybe consider, some blending in there too for the florals and the Viognier and the same sort of thing too. But ended up making 5 different wines. And you know,
Just
so
a
I guess
mad Rhone scientist.
that's how it works, I guess. You kind of do what you can. These beauties.
This is a vertical tasting that Jeff recently attended on Thanksgiving. So Vonnet Romani in Burgundy, pretty special piece of real estate, but what was perhaps more special is the individual behind sharing these wines. Jeff, why don't you tell them about Martine?
Sure. So we had Thanksgiving at my place, and there's a group of friends. We usually get together. There's 16, 18 of us typically too. And Martine Saunier is a very dear friend. That's her right there. And I encourage you to Google her. She is a legend in the wine business. She's also produced 3 movies, a year in Burgundy, a year in Champagne, and I can't remember what the third one was. And she is just a treasure. And I had the privilege of having her for Thanksgiving. Her mutual friend has been trying to get us together for many, many years and just never worked out. She was never here, and it just worked out. And she brought, I mean, this is the kind of Thanksgiving guest you want, I guess. She brought 3 Henri Jaers, which are the most difficult, hardest to find Burgundies in the world. Okay. And brought 3 of them. And I was texting that unknown winemaker who is a very good friend of mine, who for this year, unfortunately, was not able to make Thanksgiving, and he was crying. He was literally in tears because these are some of those special wines in the world. And the Cropain too, this the one, the 99 is, you should read the stories about that. It's a little 1-acre vineyard at elevation that nobody wanted to do. And in case you don't know Henri Jaer, he's the godfather of Burgundy. His Burgundies are the most sought after in the world. He produced, to give you an idea, 300 cases a year, which is, you know, he's more insane than I am. So, and Martine was one of the first to really distribute his wines in the US, and her story is amazing.
Yeah, she's an absolute badass. And I like stories of badass women in any industry, but I especially like them in a misogynistic, male-dominated wine industry.
Totally.
And very similar to Madame Clicquot, you know, Madame Bollinger. These people just freaking kill it. And they do it in an era, you know, you go back to the 50s and 60s and 70s, obviously Madame Clicquot from Veuve Clicquot and Lily Bollinger from Bollinger Champagne, much earlier than that. Where it was illegal for a woman to even own a business, let alone land. And they're like, yeah, no, we're going to own it. But she essentially discovered this quiet winemaker and tasted his stuff. And she has an incredible palate, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with regards to tasting things and being able to perceive things. And I encourage you to Google her Martine Saunier. Oh, thanks. Mission Control all over it. Read that article. You want to be impressed by a young lady, read that article.
By the way, she's 88 years old. 88. Yeah. And let me tell you, I've met 60-year-olds that don't have that much energy. She's amazing, just amazing. This is, I took this picture at Thanksgiving, and that's when I handed her the truffles that I had got for the evening too. And she was very, 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 very happy.
And just to give you an idea of this woman's hospitality, graciousness, and compassion, those 3 bottles that she happened to bring for Thanksgiving dinner, 50 grand.
Yeah.
50,000.
I knew they were expensive. I didn't, one of my friends Googled it and checked it out, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So
Henri Jaer's Burgundies are pretty special. You know, they put Romanée-Conti on the map. They put Vonnet Romani on the map. It's a very interesting article, very well written article, but you will appreciate this woman who bought his wines, first vintage, I think, for $2.50 a bottle.
Yes. Yep.
And now they're good. Now that you can't even get them, and they're over 10,000 a bottle, regardless of release. It's crazy.
You can't get
but just a super, 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 super special bottle. This is why vertical tastings are fun, but only when you have friends like Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about that was a vertical tasting, right? And there
There's a
were
vertical tasting.
17 of us for those 3 bottles. I mean, what a treat, right? What an honor. It was, as I said, some of my winemaker friends were crying because, to be able to taste some of those too. And the 99 comes from about, a small vineyard above Richebourg that nobody wanted, and Jair took it and made it into this amazing stuff. And oh, by the way, those wines are delicious. I don't need to tell you any more than how delicious those wines were. So delicious.
No, it's incredible. And I think it actually brings up a good point about a vertical tasting that we didn't talk about.
Yep.
They don't have to be consecutive vintages.
Correct.
You don't have to taste the 12, 13, and 14. You can taste the 5, the 10, and the 12. It doesn't matter. But absolutely grab 2 or 3 or 4 of a vertical, grab some friends. Doing it blind. The only thing I think about doing it blind, Jeff, that I would have problems with is maybe double blind. Someone has to not be blind. Someone has to know the answer.
Usually the host. Yeah.
Right. So the host gets
somebody,
shafted.
or somebody can be pouring them too. And here's the deal with the really special wines, don't do them blind. Right. Don't do them blind. You don't need to do that. If you're doing more recent vintages of something, that's more affordable and that sort of thing, then blind can be kind of fun. And also blind is also great with different wines too, right? You can put the different types of wines and do those blind and taste them that way too, and test your, does a Syrah, how does it taste different from a Cab and that sort of thing.
Super cool.
Italian wines, yeah. So
one quick question, and it was a poll question, but I'm not going to launch it. It is the season for lists. For those of you that have been naughty and nice, or have children that are naughty and nice, or naughty, which region in the world has more 100-point wines than all others? And Jeff, you can participate in this one because I know you're a fan. Is it Tuscany, Burgundy, Napa, Rioja, Michigan? See, the Holdens aren't on. You're not going to see the poll. I'm just going to give it to you verbally.
Right.
You are going to see it. Anthony's launched it. I'm sorry, Mission Control launched it.
More 100-point wines
than any other region. Yep.
Ever.
Oh, by the way, and speaking of lists, Sipsters, Wine Spectator just came out with their top 100 wine list, and Knoll was on number, I think Knoll was in the 30s or 40s. So wow. Great wine. And I might be a Knoll on the website still. All right. Ooh, Rioja getting the cold shoulder. Not a lot of love for Spain.
Hey, those Tintos are amazing wines. I had some 60s and 70s Tintos recently. Amazing.
Well, and here's something interesting. Grenache Blanc originated in Spain.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, stop sharing.
I've already done it.
Share result. How come it's not to me? Mission Control just doing things. So, yeah, but Sonoma, I love it. Who selected Tuscany? Show of hands. Oh, no one on camera. Oh, Karen, honest. Okay, you're wrong.
I mean, it's got to.
Who selected the Rhone? Jim B. Jim Bocci. He had the smartphone. Show now we got to go to the judges because Cherise said she did. I see. Angels. I already sense some interior conflict. This is not good. Speaking of not good, we've got to let Jeff go because the answer is the Rhone. The Rhone region has more 100-point wines. And by the way, it's not even close. It's not even close.
Yeah, La Landon, La Moline, the Guigals has 3 of those single vintage ones. They're all 100-point wines.
Correct.
Yeah.
They, hands down. They have a lot of them. It's amazing. But Michigan, I think, is making a late surge.
Let me ask the group this one question too. So we know in Champagne there are 3 varietals, and in Burgundy there are 2 varietals. In Bordeaux there are 5 varietals, and 13 in the Rhone. How many varietals do you think are in Italy?
I'm going to go 500.
Any other?
Ivy says 23.
Okay.
Mike says 1.
4,000.
Oh
of which 900 are used predominantly. This is why I have been afraid to tackle Italian wines. I have an amazing, 4,000 varietals, 900 used today for wines. It's insanity.
Yeah, you can tackle them by tasting them. Do not start planting them, please.
My dear friend Monica Lardner, who is the Italian wine expert for Robert Parker and wine advocate, tastes thousands and thousands and thousands of Italian wines every year. And let me tell you, plenty of verticals that she's done. It's a chore. It's a lot of work too. But that is a very difficult region to get your hands on and to rate.
No, it's insane. I mean, it is work. And you saw it in the breaking news that I launched today. When you have a business that has raised $100 million with private equity investors and stuff like that go bankrupt, it gives you an idea of how hard wine clubs are. It gives you an idea of how hard this industry is. When you've got illegal business practices going on by and conspiring to fix prices, it hurts the producer. It's an incredibly difficult business with the behavior that happens. That's why you're so important. That, by the way, is why on every Friday night, sip happens, because this is what is needed. And oh, by the way, wine club members, the canteen has been changed. And now that Winc has just lost, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands of wine club members, extend them an olive branch. There's wine drinkers out there that are begging to be found by the angels. And when they are found by the angels and we start gaining and they start knocking down pins and getting industry attention, people are going to go, who are those guys? Where have they come from? Why is there nothing to show? Where'd my picture go? God, that was such a good setup.
It was so good.
What in the hell happened? Stop sharing. I'm not sharing anything. Where'd that go? Rats. Okay, so I dated myself on that picture, and I know I have to let Jeff go. Let me see if I can find it, because he's got a dinner reservation. Hang on. Let me see if this works.
That's what wines I'm taking.
Oh, it's not. It's interesting. It only shows for a second, then goes away. All right. Everyone on the left-hand side of the auditorium, caca. Just the ladies. See mission control. Everyone wish happy Ivy birthday. Wish Ivy a happy birthday. Angels, we are off next week. We have our final episode of the year coming up. December 16th. It is the holiday extravaganza of the year. None other than Napa legend Tom Rinaldi is our guest on SIP, founding winemaker of Duckhorn, an unbelievable 47 vintages under his belt.
Wow, impressive. It's
insane. And we will talk all sorts of different things. Next week we're off because the Angels are doing a little bit of traveling and going to see some family. You guys are awesome. Can't do this without you. Be good to one another. Drink some of the good stuff. You've got 2 bottles open. Thank you so much for all the support. Cheers.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the
Jeff.
wine. Happy